So this is going to be challenging because the ribs up there curve a bit, which means it's going to be really hard to measure those with a tape measure in order to space out the holes for the bolts, because the distance there is going to be slightly different with the tape measure because it's curved. So when I try to apply those measurements to this, because it's mostly straight right now, it's not really going to be accurate. So I need to stop and think about what is the best way to do this, because it's not going to be easy. This is probably going to be really annoying. But thankfully, I only have to do it 4 times. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I just ran and grabbed some of these clamps. I'm thinking I might be able to, inside of there, those little holes, I might just barely be able to clamp the plywood down and hold it in place so that I can kind of get an idea of exactly where in line this hole will be so that I can get the bolts in. And then once I have one bolt in, I think I can kind of just work my way down to the other side. Maybe doing a little guesstimation, maybe not, I don't know. I'll figure it out once I'm up there and get the bolts in. But I'm going to try that because that's the best idea I have right now. Okay, let's see. Can I get this in here? I tested this a moment ago, I can. And then hold it in place with that. Like, that's perfect. So I'm gonna try marking this real quick. Okay. Okay, I'm thinking. Do I want to try marking a hole in each of these now, since it's actually pretty flush? Or do I want to bolt this in, then mark the rest and try the rest? How about I do both? How about I do both? I'll mark this, and then I'll bolt them in one by one. So I'll mark this, but I won't cut it or drill into it, I mean. Like that. Alright, so I got my hole. Don't know if you can see that, but let's try this again. Okay, let's try that. Just don't fall on my head. So one of these, and one of these. Just right there. Here's the problem. If I screw this in next, I won't be able to bend this or swivel it anymore. So I think I need to find each of these, drill them, eyeball it, make sure it looks right, and then do it. So I'm just going to figure this out. I'm not going to bother recording it, and I'll show you when I'm done. Alright, well, here we are. So I ended up removing 1 inch from both sides because I think it was a little too long when it got to the end here. I think the slope on the ribs quickens, and it was making it bend a little bit too much to not like want to snugly get up in there. So I removed 1 inch from each side, and then I tried again, and it feels pretty good now. If I knock on it, it doesn't sound loose or anything. I can grab it, it feels pretty good. I don't want to pull too hard because it's only plywood, but it looks good to me. I just need to do this 3 more times. I'm going to trim the rest of the plywood because I haven't trimmed the other planks yet. So I'm going to trim those down 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches on each side. I feel like this I could even trim slightly more. Put them up again, hopefully it's easier. So now that I have my circuit breaker box and these ceiling ribs in place, what I want to do now is put in the rest of the wiring that I plan on putting in the van. So 10 gauge wire that's going to go to the 4 different wall outlets that I want to put in, like the wall outlet that's right there. I want to do the wiring for those. Any 12-volt wiring that needs to go around for instance, the pump that I have that operates off of 12 volts, not 110. So I'll need to put in wiring for that. And aside from that, the main thing to do on the ceiling is put in the insulation that I want to put in. So I'll probably do both of those. I think that's my goal for today, is I want to try to get both of those in place. So I'll be putting in the same 1-inch polyiso insulation that I put down here. I plan on gluing to the ceiling in between these ribs. So that is my goal for today. So I've been putting this heat shrink on the wire as I run the wire to these outlets. The heat shrink kind of just helps keep the wire together, especially like you see up here. So I can keep the pairs of red and black wire together. Helps keep it organized and spaced out. I only had 10 pieces of the side that actually fits this wall though. So I ran out before I could do the last wall outlet right here. So I'm gonna have to run to the hardware store to get more heat shrink to keep doing this. But I don't feel like running to the hardware store right now, so I think what I'd rather do is put some of the insulation on the roof. The foam insulation, I'm going to cut it up. I've done a little bit of measuring already, so I'm going to cut up the insulation and see if I can't start gluing it to the ceiling. Alright, I have these 3 pieces of foam cut out. I'm going to take each of these and glue them up right here in this center slot right there. The foam will not bend like that wood does, so I'm thinking if I cut this into 3 pieces, it'll bend with the roof as much as it needs to. Because if I can't do one big piece because it's not going to bend. So I'm going to spray some adhesive with this glue right here onto there. Spray some glue on, push it up. Whatever the cure time is on the glue, I'm thinking this foam is so light that it will just grip and hold as much as it needs to stay on pretty much instantly, and then it can cure over however long it needs to actually cure. But I'm gonna try doing that now. Okay, here's some quick updates to report on. I have the ceiling in place now, all sections of it except the one down there. I'll talk about that in a second. So the glue that I was using was not holding. The panels that I put up right here fell down the next day, and then I tried again the next day, and they still were falling down. So what I ended up doing was putting these up here in a way where they would stay, so kind of pushing them under this lip right here. There's a little lip behind the edges of these boards. So I tried putting the boards up in a way where they were angled so that they would sit. And then I took my foam insulation and sprayed it along the seams while they were just like resting there, so that by the time this hardened, it was there to support this. So this isn't glued down at all, it's just being held by this foam, and it's pretty sturdy, I think. Like, I give it a tap and it sounds pretty nice, so I don't think that's going anywhere. But it was a little annoying trying to get the glue to work and having that not work and having to find a different solution. That was annoying, but I'm pretty happy with how it came out in the end. The other quick thing I can show you right now is I took these outlets that I had been running around, and I bought these little plastic boxes for them, and also bought this green wire to ground them. So these are completely wired up now. They have the hot, neutral, and grounding wire. So these are pretty much ready to just be screwed in. The one down here I actually screwed in already right there, as you can see, because you're not going to really see this outlet, so I don't need to wait to cover that up. So I just figured I'd screw that in right now. But with this one, I'm going to wait till I'm putting in the cosmetic boards right here, so that I kind of know exactly how high or low I want to put that. But these are ready to be screwed in whenever I'm ready for that. These grounding wires I just have going to these little metal screws that I put in to pin them to the frame of the van. I'm pretty sure that's a good way to ground them. So I have the 110 more or less done. At this point, most of the electrical wiring that I still need to do is 12 volt stuff. Like the pump that's down there runs on 12 volts. The lights that I'm planning on putting in the ceiling are going to be 12 volts. The 110, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty much done, which is exciting. So with that being said, I need to just kind of stop and think, what is there still left to do? I need to finish the plumbing with this, put the countertop that I'm going to have sitting up here. The plumbing is mostly done. I did go to the hardware store again and pick up some more things to do more of the plumbing. So that might be what I'm doing today. But outside of that, I need to do some wiring for the 12 volts. And I think that's really it. There's really very little still left to do. I still need to put the insulation in the walls, but that will be easy. That will be very easy. I just have this wool insulation, so I'll just stuff back there. But aside from that, I think my focus for today will be this countertop and doing more of the plumbing. Because once the countertop's in place, I can really actually sit the sink in, put the faucet in, and I should be ready to test the plumbing at that point. So I think that's my goal for today. Looking good.